Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about breakout, also known as brick breaker or any number of billions of names. I call it brick breaker because that's what you're doing. Um, I'm going to start by building off of the pong game. Now, all I'm going to be doing is taking the paddle and ball so I don't have to rewrite them. And we'll be modifying them slightly, uh, and I'll go through a quick overview of their use and their functionality. But the whole point of Brick Breaker and the thing that differentiates Brick Breaker from Pong is that you have stationary objects that you have to destroy. Um, and you only have one area that you can fall through, and maybe you're not really keeping score the same way. So let's get to it. I'm going to open up a new template folder. If you have questions about the things I'm taking from Pong or some of the other things that we have to get done in order to get this project created, we really should see the Pong video. Here we go. The Break Breaker game. Okay, so I'm going to open up my JavaScript folder and I'm going to paste in some files. I'm also going to be sure to edit this to be index.html. It's empty right now, and we're going to edit it using Sublime Text. And I'm going to take this and change to add a new bit of information here. We're going to be using ball.js. We're also going to be using paddle.js. And we're going to be using brick.js, which is a new file we'll have to create. Instructions go here, title goes here, change your comments, etc. Now, inside JS, I'm going to edit template inside Sublime. And I'm going to make a new file. I'll call it brick.js. And I'm going to open up ball, and I'm going to open up paddle as well. And I have all my files available. Now in template, this is where our game logic goes. I'm going to paste background. Game logic goes here. And we're going to want to start out with a ball. And we'll start out with a paddle. And we'll say that those are created. Paddle equals new paddle. And we're going to change the default behavior of the paddle to be at x equals width over 2. And height is at the bottom of the page. And the height is going to be 20. And the width is going to be 140. So this has a collision method which checks against the ball. And instead of changing the ball's Vx, we'll change the ball's Vy. And this is something that you can investigate from the Pong video if you need more clarification. But this is the entire file. Pause here if you need to have a look. Likewise for ball, we're going to start with basically the same metrics. And we have a reset method, but we'll be using it a little bit differently this time. The thing that we do want to change is we only want to bounce off the ceiling, and we want to bounce off if this dot x minus is greater than the width, or this dot x minus this dot r is less than 0, this dot vx equals this dot equals negative this dot vx. So x is the position, vx and vy are our speeds, which are initially random. We have that if the top of the ball is above the top of the page, switch the vy values. So we're going from positive to negative, or negative to positive. We are bouncing off of the ceiling. It means our velocity is pointing down. Here, if we bounce off the left side or the right side, our velocity will switch. Now, we are going to now be creating a brick. But before we do that, let's try ball.show, calling the ball show function, ball.move, calling the ball's move function, paddle.show, and then paddle.x equals mouse x. So we're going to say that our paddle follows our mouse. And you can do something here if paddle.x is less than 0, paddle.x equals 0, if paddle.x plus paddle.width is greater than width, paddle.w, paddle.x equals width minus paddle.width. And this way we can sort of limit our paddle from going the wrong way. So let's open up index to just test this out. Okay, so right now I'm trying to go off the edge and I can't. I'm trying to go off the edge and I can't. My paddle follows my mouse. It's a little wide. Maybe we want to increase the size of our space. And we see that we're bouncing pretty well. Now, we obviously went through the floor, but that's the point. We can have a score set to 0. And over here, we can have something up here that says fill 0, text size 50, 20, text score 50, 50, and refresh. Okay, so we have a score in the upper left corner. Maybe we'll add a score every brick we break, and then we have some sort of game over state when the ball falls below the end. The way to implement a game over state is the following. We can say if the ball.x or ball.y is greater than height, ball.y plus minus ball.r is greater than height, game over equals true. And we'll say if game over equals false. If it's not a game over, we care about showing all this stuff, and we care about moving all this stuff. Otherwise, let's not. So let's see what happens. Else So we'll have some sort of game over text if we lose. Let's see what happens here. Yay, we get game over and nothing happens. And your score still shows in the corner. So this is a way to finish off the game using something that can be true or false in an if statement to determine if we keep playing. So if the top of the ball moves below the bottom of the page, game over is true. This really should go below at the bottom of this area, but it doesn't really matter. It would just do one frame extra of movement. And at this point, we have a game, except we're not colliding with things. One thing we want to do is we want to see that the paddle collides with the ball. And this is a function that was written in paddle from pong. We're checking to see when the ball is not colliding with the paddle. We're saying the word not here to say whenever that's not the case. So we're doing a double negative, and then we're colliding, or we're reversing our velocity. This idea is going to be pretty useful for us with the brick for Brick Breaker. Let's refresh, and we have an error. It's called collision, not collide. That's our issue. We'll change this and refresh, and we bounce. And so this is most of the game, except for the important parts that make it Brick Breaker. So let's make a brick. A brick can be made by making a constructor function to define what a brick is. And what does a brick have? Well, a brick is basically like a paddle. So I'm going to just copy all this paddle stuff, and you should too. I'm going to make a brick. And we'll say that maybe a brick is a little thicker, maybe 40, maybe a little shorter, maybe 100, maybe 80. And that its y dimension and its x dimension are going to be randomized in a certain range. So we can say, and we can always modify this, but we can say that it's random between, say, 100 and width minus 100, and random from 100 to height minus 100. And so that way we have some sort of buffer on all sides, but we're going to generate a brick. And of course, I forgot to actually build a brick. But the idea is a brick is just sort of, let's make our bricks blue. You can always randomize the color if you'd like. But we're going to make a brick here. And in template, let's make one. There, brick. At the end, I'll show you how to make a bunch of these in a sequential order. But for now, we're just going to make a brick. We'll call the brick constructor to make a new brick. We'll construct a new brick. We'll form a new brick, an actual object from our template of a brick. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say brick.show and brick.collide with the ball. Now the problem is that the collide method for the brick is not quite what we need, but we'll fix that later. So we have this brick that appears in the center. It's this blue color. And I don't know that we'll ever hit it, but this is sort of one of the benefits of making a paddle that responds differently depending on where you hit it. but you can see that the, oh, there's a little bug there. You can see that the brick actually works with the collide method just like the paddle. Ultimately, the real thing you're going to want to do with the brick is you're going to want to say that you have these metrics for the ball, and basically you want to pay attention to where the ball is hitting. And if the ball is straddling a certain location, like if the ball is straddling the top of the brick or straddling the bottom of the brick, then we want to change the x value. If the ball is straddling the left or straddling the right, we want to change the x value. If it's straddling top and bottom, we'll change the y value, the y velocity. So the way to go about that is to say, hey, what are the cases where we want to change the y velocity? And what are the cases where we want to change the x velocity? And also, we want to make something that makes the brick disappear. So one way we can do this is we can say that we have a this.active value. And we can say that that's set to true to start. And we will only show the brick if active is true. You can say simply if active here, but for clarity, I'm going to make sure to say that we care about when it's true. This is equally valid, and you'll see this more often with seasoned programmers. But we'll leave it like this for now. If the ball gets hit, we want to make sure that active is false. So in some cases, we want to check to see if the ball is bouncing off the top and bottom. And we want to see if the ball is bouncing off the left and right. So this is going to be slightly different. We're just going to be changing choice pieces of this equation. So when we're bouncing off the top, let's say here, we care if the ball is either above, we care that the ball is both above and below at the same time. So the top of the ball is above the top of the brick, and the bottom of the ball is below the top of the brick. So the bottom of the ball, so we want to say when it's not colliding, so we really want this. When the ball is greater than the top, or when the top of the ball is not below and the bottom of the ball is not above. And we do a not on that, and it should reverse everything for us. Likewise, we'll just delete this piece, and that should help us to find the proper bouncing for the left and right. Now, this might not work the first time, but let's see how it goes. And it didn't work the first time. Let's see our elements. This dot active. And up here, if this dot active, and here we actually want to say, hey, we only want to do this stuff if this dot active is true. Otherwise, we don't want to bother with doing any of these calculations. Let's move all this in. and refresh. Great. It's a little bug with the collision methods depending on the speeds, but that's something we can learn to fix at a later date. Obviously, if you set this project so that you have collisions with the paddle at a different area, let's see if we get something a little better here. If you hit it at like the left half, it'll go left. If you hit it at the right half, it'll change the right speed. Those are all things that are okay. So that almost worked. Oh yes, that hit the left side. So um, what we want to do is yeah. So we'll want the same thing. Yeah, there's probably a better way to do this. We'll want the same thing, except we'll switch these signs. Oh, no, that's not what we want. Plus this dot h plus this dot h, and we'll take this and we'll paste it again, and we'll say plus this dot w here plus this dot w. So what this will do is it'll just ensure that every one of our values that we care about in terms of the corners or in terms of the sides will produce the proper effect. So, and then it'll disappear and it won't be able to collide anymore. There are other ways of doing this. We also want to be able to check to see if we want to be able to add a point. So one way you can do this is you can say at the bottom of this big long statement, return active, this dot active. So if this dot active is false, we know we hit the ball and we can add a point. And one thing that we can do here is we can say that yeah, we'll worry about that part later. So right now we have something where we can bounce, and we can say if brick.active if brick.active is true, then we can check to see if it collides. And then we can say if brick.active equals false, score plus plus. So increase the score if we were true and now we're false. So this will be, this is an easy way around worrying about returning things. So obviously we have a problem where if the, so we got a point. Yay. So we got a point because we hit the ball, or we hit the brick. If you want more bricks, you can say brick equals new brick, brick 2. So we have two brick variables. We go here, we say brick2.show. We'll just copy this entire thing, paste it, add brick 2, and refresh. Okay, refresh, refresh. These are going real slow. There we go, we got 1 point. And that'll take forever. So we got a point. And then you can change this so the ball always goes down. You can also change this so that you have any manner of other things happening. If you want a grid of bricks, you need to be able to do an array. You need to also be able to do a loop. I will talk about that in another video. This one's already getting kind of long. So let's see our game over. Okay, great. Have a good day.